Hello, everyone. Welcome back to In the Yard Podcast with your hosts, Collin and Braeden Cox. And we are officially one third of the way through the MLB season. And Braeden and I are going to give you our quick update about certain topics that we think are kind of important, kind of interesting right now. So stay tuned for the rest of the episode, and we'll give you our thoughts on our topics. Our topics will be in the description. I think we're going over D-back slow start, shortstops debate. In the NL East, what it means with the Acuna down, and then a little bit of a umpiring debate with technology and all that. Yeah, so we'll get right into it here. But I know we don't really have a particular order to start with, but I guess we could just start with a D-back so start. I know me and you
Yeah,
both had pretty high expectations for them for this year. I think I had
yeah,
them, as my kind of like World Series pick, especially after last year's run. And then they go out and get Jock Peterson. They go out and get Jordan Montgomery for the season. But they're sitting right now at 25 and 30. Not really in contention for first place in the West with the Dodgers. And not even right now in a wild card spot. And at this time last year, Brandon, I think they're definitely above 500. I have the notes right here. Um, last year at this time on May 30th, they were 31 and 23, so 8 games above 500. Now they're 5 games below 500 this year. But
wow.
on August 11th, they were below 500 on August 11th at 57 and 59. So they did have a little bit of a skid in July and August. But yeah, we're here. I'm just kind of want to go over like what their problem is for this year, like why they're having such a slow start. And the reason why they're not winning as many games as they were last year and why they're not really performing like that championship team we expected them to be. And I just want to start off with mainly their I think their main lack of success, the main reason stems from just their pitching overall.
Yeah,
Starting pitching, relief pitching. So overall, they're the 23rd worst ERA, or 23rd best ERA, I should say, between starting pitchers, and then 21st starting pitching
okay,
ERA and 21st relief pitching ERA. Um,
okay,
Brandon, the pitching is kind of what carried them to the World Series last year.
yeah,
And then they're just not performing as well this year. And you would think they would have been even better, with getting Jordan Montgomery, still got Zach Allen, still got Merrill Kelly. The bullpen's still pretty solid, but I think they're just not performing as well as we're used to seeing, especially last year, like in the postseason, the way they did. Um, and yeah, just haven't gotten the job done so far. I'm not saying they can't turn it around, but I think that's just one of the main reasons why, um, they haven't been as successful so far this year.
yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, the two most important positions on the field are the pitching and the catching, right? So if the pitching isn't to par, you know, you're not going to win as many games as you should. And right now, you'd probably agree with me. They're definitely not a postseason team, right? Just by the way that they're performing. Obviously, their pitching is a huge issue, but you know, I think we were expecting a little bit more from Corbin Carroll. To me, he's probably the biggest disappointment thus far this season. If we're going to single out one player, he's been pretty poor this year. There's other issues across their lineup, right? Like you don't have Evan Longoria there, which I know he may not be as critical of a piece as you think, but he has that veteran presence, and I think that does matter, especially on a team that is, you hate to say they got lucky last year, but they may have been a little bit in over their heads. They still could have got it done, but they were still pretty young. They didn't have too many veterans on that team, and now with Evan Longoria gone, I think that does have an impact. And I also think their base running. We kind of looked at them last year as a team that they played a lot of small ball, like they beat you on the bases, right? It I haven't seen anything really special base running for everything that I've read. I mean, again, us on the East Coast, I don't catch too many Diamondbacks games, but what I've seen is it seems like it's been pretty sloppy on the base running. So it's almost like they've kind of lost what they were last year, what made them so successful. And they've kind of fizzled back to the Diamondbacks that we had seen in previous years, which I hope isn't the case because you had them as a perennial World Series team. I had them definitely making the playoffs, and right now, that's not going to happen. So unless something changes, they're kind of in a bad spot, and I don't know what the betting odds say right now, but I'm not going to pick them with the way that other teams are performing. Across the NL, I'm not going to pick them to make the playoffs right now. Certainly, they're only a few games below 500. They could definitely turn it around. Like you said, in August of last year, they were 2 games below 500. Would you say 57, 59, something like
Yep,
that? So
on August
anything
11th.
can
So
happen.
exactly,
Anything can
exactly.
happen. But thus far, 1/3 into the season, they're not playing the same brand of baseball that made them so successful last year. And I think it's going to be their Achilles heel. So
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head. And I was going to get into my second reason. You already talked about this. Also, was Corbin Carroll is just not having the same season he did last year after winning NL Rookie of the Year. Having a little bit of a sophomore slump. Batting 194, 276 on base, and then 291 slugging. So we're definitely now seeing that in just a .1 F4. And last week when I checked, he was actually had a negative .1 F4. So definitely not what we want out of your, kind of was looking to be our franchise player, but I think he'll turn it around. I think he'll step it up a little bit. And then I think I not counting D-backs out just yet, but just wanted to
he's
find
only
some reasons as to
23.
why.
So there's no
Yeah.
reason to panic. He's a young
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
There's such thing as a sophomore slump, and I think that's just what's going on here. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, they're done. They're not going to make the playoffs. I probably
No.
wouldn't bet them to make the playoffs at this point because if this continues, they're just not going to be able to keep up with the other wild card teams.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. I would expect someone Corbin Carroll. He's kind of an electric player. Even if this isn't their year, I would expect him to kind of get back into the swing of things. As the summer progresses and even into next year.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. All right. I think I got all my thoughts on the D-backs out for now. So did you want to move on to the next topic?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think
All
that's
right.
that's pretty much everything there in Arizona.
Yeah. So yeah, next topic we'll get into it's slowly becoming, I think we mentioned this last episode, Brain young shortstops are kind of taking over the league. We got Gunnar,
Yeah,
we got Bobby Witt Jr., we got Anthony Volpe having a stellar season so far on our Yankees. Love to see that. Mookie Betts moving to shortstop now. You got Corey Seager, like,
yeah,
the veteran ones. But
yeah.
yeah, I just think Braden and I kind of want to debate right now who would be the AL starting shortstop. I think most there's a little bit of an undisputed here. I think last week I would have said one guy, but this week I'm kind of leaning toward another. So Braden and I are going to get right into that here. So for the AL side of things, I think as far as shortstops go, it's kind of between two guys is probably the best shortstop in the AL. Um, and that's Bobby Witt Jr. and Gunnar Henderson. Bobby Witt Jr., 23, I think he is, just got a big bag from the Royals to keep him long term. They're having a stellar season so far as well, a lot better than a lot of people expected. And then you also have Gunnar Henderson right on the Orioles, who had the best record in baseball last year besides the Braves. Kind of came out of nowhere, run one AL Rookie of the Year pretty handily. And he's also super young and got a lot of talent there as well. So Brady and I are going to discuss who we think would be, the starting shortstop if the All-Star game was today, who would be there for the AL. So Brady, give me your little rundown and thoughts on this.
Yeah, so you kind of talked about it already, but this is something that I've kind of gone back and forth with all year, and it even leads back into our prior discussion about who the AL MVP was, right? The last time we talked, I said I think it's more of a two-legged race between Soto and Gunnar, right? I took Gunnar, you took Soto, right? Just because, just to be different, just to have that conversation, right? I would say now Soto has, in my eyes, taken that like a little bit of a lead there. He's been playing well. The Yankees are the best team in baseball, I would say.
No love for Judge.
And that Judge, I would probably say Judge is like a 4 right now, because there was a few weeks there where we were like a
That's
little bit.
true. Yeah,
I wasn't worried about
he's got to be
Judge,
a
but
little
there
more
was a lot of
consistent.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Fair
yeah.
enough.
So
Sorry
it
for
came
him.
down
Go
to
ahead.
consistency.
Yeah.
Um, so right now, and it's a very interesting debate because these two teams are in my eyes, very, very different spots, right? The argument I'm going to take Bobby Witt here, right? If what Bobby Witt has done with the Kansas City Royals, I think needs to be talked about a little bit more. This team was a bottom 3 team in baseball last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was there, right? it took him a little bit more to get going versus Gunnar. Gunnar kind of, came out the gate and was a little bit but now has been really consistent, really good. But I'm gonna take Bobby Witt because I think he's doing a lot with less than what Gunnar Henderson is, right? Like you said, like
That's fair.
there's
That's a good point.
Adley, there's Jackson Holiday, there's a lot of talent in Baltimore. And we kind of came into the season with a high expectation that this team should be a top 3 team in the AL, right? They should be a perennial World Series team, excuse me. Um, versus the Kansas City Royals, neither of us picked to make the playoffs, and none of
Nope.
us picked them to really make any noise. And here we are headed into the summer, and we might need to be having a real conversation here in the next few weeks that this might be a World Series team, right? I know that might be a little far fetched, but the turnaround in Kansas City has been tremendous, right? And I get it. Gunnar Henderson's stats might be better, right, across the board. But if we're going to talk, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, if you like offense, you're probably going with Gunnar. But if you like defense, you're going to go with Bobby Witt Jr., right? Both are stellar players, right? I just think it's a little bit more impressive what Bobby Witt is doing with less than what Gunnar Henderson is doing. There's a lot more, um, you know, room in the lineup for Gunnar Henderson to kind of rake versus Bobby Witt
Mm-hmm.
Jr. You got Salvador Perez, you got some other guys who have been playing well, right? I'm not saying that Bobby Witt is doing it all, but I would say he's largely the reason that we're sitting here today and we're talking about the Royals as a team last year who no one cared about. They were pretty god awful, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're scoring a ton of runs basically on a consistent, on a daily basis. It's not like a once in a while thing. Like they're a good offensive team. They've got good pitching, and I think a lot of that, goes back to Bobby Witt and just the leadership skills there too to kind of rally everyone like that from being kind of bottom of the barrel last year to potentially being in the conversation to be a World Series team. Is just that's my argument for him there. But
Yeah.
I'm not mad with the argument either way.
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you, Braeden. Um, I'm just wondering. So 2 weeks ago, I think it was, you had Gunnar Henderson as the AL MVP.
Yeah,
And now you're saying that, Bobby Witt Jr., not only is Gunnar Henderson not the AL MVP, he's not even the best shortstop in the AL. So I'm just curious to what has changed. What changed between that argument for you, going from Gunnar to AL MVP to Bobby Witt Jr. taking him for their first shortstop position in AL.
yeah. Like I said, uh, I had Gunnar Henderson as like at the time like the AL MVP right there with Soto, right? I'm giving it to Soto right now. I think that's completely fair to do. And really the only reason why that I put Bobby a little bit ahead, right, is because if I wanted a shortstop right now, right, I'm taking Bobby Witt Jr. because of his glove. I think he's definitely a better defensive player. Yes, Gunnar
Yeah.
Henderson is the better offensive talent, right? And I'm not taking anything away from Gunnar. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but you said like 1A, 1B basically is what this comes down to. If you were to ask me which of these two guys I want for the next 10 years, right? I would be more inclined to lean Gunnar Henderson, right? But if you ask me who I would want right now, right, with the leadership skills, all that, uh, it's hard for me to not take Bobby Witt. And maybe I'm biased because I'm a Yankees fan and I don't want to see the Orioles do well, right? But it just seems that Bobby Witt is doing a lot with not near as much as what Gunnar Henderson's doing, where he's kind of got a lot of padding in that lineup for him to, I can't really pitch around him, you know what I mean? Because there's so many dudes that could rake.
Right. Yeah. Let me reach some quick stats here. Bobby Witt Jr., 307 average, 363 on base, 547 slugging, 37 ribbies, 9 home runs, 6 triples, and then 3.5 FWAR, and then 9.1 defensive runs above average, which is first among shortstops. So yeah, he's having a stellar season so far. Compared to Gunnar, batting 258, a little bit lower average, 354 on base percentage, almost right there with Bobby, and then 584 slugging. A lot thanks to his 18 home runs, which is double, Bobby's home run total. He has 4 triples as well. 3.3 F4 and 41 RBI. So very just super. Both of them are just super close. If
Yeah, it
Gunnar does have a lot more home runs, twice as many home runs, but Bobby Witt kind of gets more on base or hits more for average, I should say. And they're only 4 RBIs apart. As record here on May 30th. Um, yeah, but the thing that really sets them apart, you said it earlier, is just their defense. So yeah, Bobby has a 9.1 defensive runs above average, which is a Fangraph stat. Just kind of calculating, just how good you are at defense compared to Gunnar Henderson's 4.2 defensive runs above average. So that's basically just saying that Bobby Witt Jr. is just a stellar glove at the shortstop position. If you would ask me last week, Braeden, um, you know, before I think I don't know where I'm going with that. But if you asked me last week, who I would have thought the starting AL shortstop would have been for the All-Star game, I would have said Gunnar. But I think after looking more into the defensive metrics, I think I'm going to go with Bobby. I agree with you, and then I think you also hit the nail on the head because I have in my notes as well. As of right now, I think I have to give the edge to Bobby. His glove sets him apart, and he's winning on a team that no one expected to be good. Like you said earlier, no one really expected the Royals to be having this good of a season so far. And then high expectations for the Orioles, a lot of credit to do with Gunnar Henderson, but Bobby Witt Jr. is kind of carrying them a little bit more than Gunnar. I think the Orioles would be without Gunnar would be able to still win a lot of games, but the Royals without Bobby Witt Jr. I don't know if I'd be able to say the same thing about that. So yeah, I'm giving the slight edge to Bobby. Could change. I might be able to change my mind next week. Depending how this week goes. But yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm gonna give the slight edge to Bobby as of right now. And yeah, I just think his glove is what sets him apart. And the fact that he's on a team, an underdog team, and they're kind of making a run to win the AL Central. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are my
Yeah. And,
thoughts there.
going back to what we said earlier, yeah, like I had him as my AL MVP at the time. I think he had a really hot start. I don't think he's necessarily even slowed down. But the thing for me is when comparing the two, right? Like I said, I might want Gunnar for the next 10 years. I might want Bobby Witt now. I think Gunnar is in like the perfect situation, right? Versus I think Bobby Witt is in probably a less than ideal situation. And I think they're just kind of figuring it out now. I mean, last year, like I said, they were probably a bottom 5 team in baseball. And suddenly we're sitting here and they're well over 500. So to me, it's like if you put both players in a vacuum, right? I think I'm taking Bobby right now. But again, it can all change. And like you said, Gunnar has probably driven in more runs, but Bobby has scored more runs, and that has a lot to do
Mm-hmm.
with probably the lineup protection. So I think really it's a fun argument to have, but I don't know if there's ever going to be a right answer, at least like this season, because it's so close. And for me, it comes down to Bobby Witt's doing a lot with far less than what Gunnar Henderson's doing. And the
Yeah.
expectations, and that might be part of it too, is the expectation in Kansas City was not high. So he's kind of propelling himself forward because of that. But I know this isn't a Royals pod, but like I said, we if they keep this up, we're gonna have to have a conversation as them, or like, are they like a top 3-4 team in
Mm-hmm.
the AL? Right?
Yeah.
Could they seriously challenge and make a run? I don't know, maybe not yet, but who knows? So it's definitely
Yeah.
definitely exciting. It's a good to see the leagues in good hands when you got two guys who are younger than us, kind of at the top.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely going to be some very good ball players and very good teams within the next few years in the AL side. All right, so I think that about wraps it up for our Bobby Witt Jr. Gunnar Henderson debate. Right now, Brandon and I are both taking Bobby, but it might change next week depending on how this week goes. So Brandon, I think we also wanted to get into the NL East debate, not debate, just NL East. Ronald Acuna Jr. unfortunately goes down, torn ACL, tore his other ACL. So I think in 2021 he tore his right one, and then this time he tore his left,
Yeah,
or
he
vice
towards that.
versa. Um, so yeah, obviously hate to see that. Hate to see one of the best players go down with an injury. Um, but like, what does this mean for the NL East? And is it now the Phillies to lose without the Braves and Acuna Jr. being out for the rest of the season? Bray, what do you think?
it's tough because I like both these teams, but before Cunha went down, the Phils were better. That's it for
Yeah.
me.
I
Like
mean, Acuna wasn't having,
I
he won MVP last year, wasn't having as great of a season, but he kind of felt it was only a matter of time until he broke out again.
yeah, I mean, and it's not anything against the Braves because I think if any team, I mean, maybe besides someone like the Dodgers currently, right? If any star player were to go down and it was kind of the next up mentality, I would expect like the Braves and the Dodgers to kind of be able, like someone like Matt Olson or whoever it may be, would come in and kind of rake. I know Austin Riley's back and all that. Like they've got the dudes to do it, but I think it might just be the Phils to lose, even if
Yeah.
he were healthy, because they were
Hmm.
playing incredible ball. I know they went to Colorado this weekend and lost 2 out of 3, but before that, like
And
they
San Fran,
they
did
made
not have a
they made
good,
the
they didn't have a good road trip. The Phillies lost 2 or 3 to San Fran and the Rockies.
it's true. It's true, but prior to that, that might just be
Yeah.
the fact that you got to travel across the country, all that. They played on Sunday, they played on Monday. Um, you know, they had to fly in between that, so that might be a piece of it too. But like I know the Texas Rangers aren't having that great of a season, but they destroyed them at home last week, right? They for a while there, they had won like 14 or 15 or something like that. They had some incredible win streak going. I think that they are just right now the better team. You know what
No,
I
I
mean?
agree.
So
I
I
agree.
know I had the Braves. You know what I mean? I think we both had the Braves winning this division, right? Just because
Yeah.
we felt so highly of them. Um, but I don't know if it really like would have mattered. Like obviously it matters for the Brave season, but if you would have asked me last week, right, before the Acuna injury, is this the Phil's division lose? I would have been like, the way they're playing right now, yeah. How could you say no?
Hmm.
I mean, the Braves are, like I said, the Braves are a team that could, kind of turn it on and get hot and make it close. But I mean, right now it's what? It's a 6 game lead. If that continues to build, it could be over. I mean, anything can happen, but I would say if there's any year that the Phils can run away with it, I think it's for sure this year.
Yeah. I think
That's God.
now I was gonna say I just agree with you. I think they were already ahead by like I think like 4 or 5 games as it is. Then the
Yeah,
Braves' best player goes down. I'm not saying like they can't win without him, but not ideal for your best player to go down. And I think now it's safe to say it's the Phillies division to lose at NL East. And I think they will run away with it. I mean, Bryce Harper is having a good season, but he's not even at the level that he's we've seen him capable
yeah,
of just yet. So I think a lot would have to go right for the Braves to come back and win or come back in the division and win. But I think right now it's the Phillies, it's all Phillies, and it's going to be theirs to lose at this point.
yeah, yeah. I think before the injury, I think the Phillies were just the better team
Yeah.
this year, right? It's not
Yeah.
anything against the Braves. I don't know about you, but I would still pick Braves to get a wild card spot,
Okay.
right? Because I
That's
think they're
fair.
good enough top to
Yeah, they
bottom
definitely,
to
definitely.
get to the dance.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's they've kind of their offense has kind of maybe sputtered a little bit. They still do score a lot of runs. They still have explosive offensive players, but it just feels like that the Phils came out of the gate better, and it's not a coincidence. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're for real.
Yeah. I mean, the Braves did
And
win the World Series in 2021 when Acuna went down that year too. So don't want to count him out.
I mean, no,
So,
I that the
but yeah,
last thing you could do with a team like the Braves, and I know we've talked about them choking to Phils the past 2 years, is to count them out because they're so deep, and there's definitely a championship
yeah.
culture in Atlanta.
Maybe
So
they need
you
maybe
know
they need that underdog label to put them over back on
that's what I
top.
was just gonna say.
Yeah.
That's what I was just gonna say. We talked about in previous episodes from last season or in the off season about the potential. Maybe we switch up the playoff format because it's hurting the teams that do really well in the regular season because then they got to wait to play again. Maybe it benefits them if they walk in as the first wild card team and then they do have to go on the road, but then they get to play immediately. They can get hot. Who knows? Like I think it's going to be a fun season, and particularly the postseason if you get the Phils get that 1 seed and then the playoffs kind of run through Philly, but you get a Braves team that's kind of the underdog, which they've been the opposite of for the past
Yeah.
few years. So
Yeah. All right, cool. I think that's all I got. I know we didn't really talk about the whole NL East, but just the Phillies and Braves kind of the
Those are
only
the
two
only two
teams really
teams that
contending
matter.
at this point. Yeah. So I think I got all my thoughts out on that one. So that brings us to our last topic for this episode, Braden. We're running on 6.5 minutes left. I think
Yeah.
we wanted to be, the debate as to whether or not MLB should implement Robo-Umps, whether, it's better to keep having the human element in the game, and everything in between. So Braden and I are going to debate that right here as our last topic. But first, let's start with, the fact that Angel Hernandez, umpiring legend, has retired from the game of baseball. I think it was like 20 years or something like that, just being absolutely
Something
awful.
crazy. He's been around for as long as we've been
Um,
around.
yeah, so yeah, no, kind of mixed feelings. Kind of was just terrible, horrible at his job, but it's kind of became a meme on Twitter at one point, with just how inconsistent and awful that he was. Players hated him, coaches hated him, managers hated him. So I think he finally just stepped away from it, and I'm not really sure how it went down. I'm not sure if they just paid off his contract or what. Didn't really look into details, but Angel Hernandez will no longer be umpiring baseball games. Brain, do you think this is good or bad for the game?
It's honestly really it's interesting because he was kind of like a celebrity for the game of baseball. Like even if you
Yeah.
weren't like
He'd be trending
watching
on Twitter
baseball,
every other week. He'd be trending
yeah,
because it's
like
such a
even
bad
if
call.
you didn't watch baseball consistently, you kind of knew who Angel Hernandez was. And it's funny because he was he's probably the most known like umpire, ref, whatever you want to call it, official across
Yeah,
like any of the major US sports, right?
definitely.
Maybe, maybe there's a few in the NBA that, are up there,
Well,
but like I would
but
say
he's
he's
only he's
probably the
only
most
so
well
known
known
because yeah, he's only so well
because
known
he
because
makes
he's
bad
so bad.
calls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Go ahead, keep going.
that's the funny part about it. I'm honestly surprised that they didn't like if they didn't give him one more game, like it just kind of was like, yeah, this is the last day. See ya. Like
Well, he,
how
he
cool
has
would
an
it have
umpire
been
just
if
like May
he
4th or something. So
yeah, how cool would it have been if they would have given him like
a
Sunday
stand
night
a send off.
baseball
Yeah,
or like yeah, like a send off game. I'm sure the
yeah,
stadium would have been packed and it would have been
yeah.
hilarious.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you hate to just be like good riddance, but like he wasn't particularly good. But I felt like we've kind of lost like a legend of the game. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah,
don't have that to
slightly.
kind of fall back on. There's that
Yeah,
laugh, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
But this is more about like the umpiring and the whether we should you know
yeah,
stick with humans and have that the potential human error, or do we just make everything clean cut 100% of the
yeah.
time and
So
have everything be robots?
yeah, so my thoughts on this, Braden, are I was at my first minor league baseball game of 2024, and they just implemented the challenge system for balls and strikes. I think you get three per game, three wrong ones per game. So if you get it right, you don't lose. If you get it wrong, you do lose it.
Yeah,
Um, and then so I saw a couple of challenges. I thought it was a really cool system the way they did it. Because there's still that human element of the umpire making the call, but the batter or pitcher or catcher can challenge whether they think it was a ball or strike. And then it shows up on the big screen, the technology, whether it's a strike or ball, and they go from there. Literally, is a 10-second process. I thought it'd be great for the game, but I also saw that they won't be implementing that anytime soon. So I'm a little confused as to why, but I think that would be the best bet, because you still have that human element, but also you still have, you want to get the right call, especially at, crunch time
yeah,
situations, and then have that replay system if you really need it. So for balls and strikes. So that's my thoughts. I think that they should implement that. Um, yeah, and I don't want that. I don't want to be completely robots because I just feel like I kind of like the old school human element of it. But also,
yeah,
humans make mistakes too, and umpires make mistakes, and that just comes part of the game. So if you could, eliminate, the bad calls and the missed calls, but still have a human element, I think it'd be the best case scenario.
yeah. I think that's what everybody wants, right? Everybody wants the correct call, right? Nobody wants bad calls because even if you're even if it benefits your team, in the long term, you're like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that, it kind of sucks for the game of baseball, right? So I agree with you 100%. I think some middle ground where you have, an umpire behind a home plate calling balls and strikes, but also having the player's ability to be like, I disagree, right? You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I think that's a really smart system, and like you said, having like those three attempts or whatever, and if you're right, then you don't lose it. If you're not right, then you lose it. I think is a good idea because it, if you're wrong 3 times, you don't continue to get to be wrong and just argue
Right.
incorrectly. For the rest of the game, I totally do get the argument for just replacing them entirely because you see all sorts of stuff that like only a human would make. Like you go back,
Yeah.
A month or so ago with the whole thing with Aaron Boone against the Athletics when the fan like screamed at the ump or something and the ump said like, "Oh, well, you're
Well,
responsible for the player or
hopefully
the fans
we
or
have to worry
whatever
about
he
it a
said."
little less. Hopefully we have to worry about it a little less with Angel Hernandez retiring.
Well, yeah, of course, but it would,
Yeah.
if you introduce like the robotic side of that, it would, you wouldn't see like the kind of nonsense stuff that ends up on like the not top 10 ESPN,
Yeah.
Or Sports Center. Like you wouldn't really see that. It would just be more so like strict balls and strikes, foul balls, fair balls, you know, stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
think a little technology, just because we're developing, technological advancements every day, it seems I think would be good for the game, just to make it a little bit more sound. But I don't want to get rid of that human element because that's what makes it,
Yeah.
baseball so beautiful at the end of the day is that there is a piece of, human error that's always possible.
Yeah. That's a good point, Brandon. As we wrap up here with less than a minute left, I think
Yeah.
you didn't only have that. And yeah, I completely agree. So thank you all for listening. In the Yard, like, comment, subscribe. Yankees, Phillies, July 29th. Be there. It's
Yes,
looking
sir.
like it's going to be a great game. Both teams are leading their
Coming up
division.
soon.
But yeah, coming up soon, and we're super excited for that. So let us know if you want to come, and we'll hope to see you there.
Yep. See you guys. Thanks.